Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Chris coming at you with another episode to the Beautiful Struggle podcast. And this is episode 51. And if this is your first time tuning into the Beautiful Struggle podcast, this is a personal development and a business podcast. And really, my goal for this podcast is to empower you guys to live the life that you deserve. All right, so with all that being said, we have another guest on via Zoom. My guest today is an entrepreneur and a financial advisor. Welcome, Jonathan Fisher. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, Chris? Thanks for having me, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Before we get into your background and your story, I really wanted to ask, how are you doing during this quarantine recently? I know we've been on this thing for a while now, but how has it been affecting you, affecting business?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, this whole quarantine thing is new to everybody, so it's all about
Right.
adjusting. With me personally, being in the wealth management space, um, it's been a bit difficult as far as dealing with clients and
Mm-hmm.
everything, especially given the market with this pandemic. It's been pretty choppy
Mm-hmm.
and uncertain at times. So it's been an adjustment period, but one thing that I would say is that there's no better time to actually perfect your craft than in a
Right.
time of crisis.
Right. No, that's really good. So yeah, man, let's dive into it. You mentioned that you're in the wealth management. You said wealth management, wealth building space. What was the
Wealth,
term
wealth
you used?
management, wealth management, wealth building
Wealth
is what.
management.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
we have both. We have clients on both ends of the spectrum that have wealth and are looking,
got you
for us to manage that wealth and
and build it.
transition that wealth. And we also have clients that are in that process of building wealth as well.
Got you. No, that's good. So we can just dive into, you growing up, Jonathan Fisher as a young man, and take us through your journey and your story to becoming to where you are right now.
Yeah, man. So, and I listened to your podcast. Been listening to a couple of the episodes, prior to
Appreciate
coming
it, bro.
on. Similar to one of your guests in the past. I grew up out in Los Angeles, Inglewood to be specific, and my upbringing was a little bit different. My family, we weren't, well off, or
Mm-hmm.
we're about, middle class. I mean, just depending on how you want to, your perspective, you can
Right,
say
right.
between lower to upper middle class, and it's all based on your perspective and how you grew up. But definitely a bit different. We grew up, me and my brother, 2 years younger than me. Uh, like I said, growing up in Inglewood, we both went to private school, so that was a little bit different than um, most kids growing up in the area. And my parents, that was one of the decisions they made early, uh, as far as what they were willing to sacrifice to have put me and my brother in a better position. So growing up, uh, from kindergarten through 12th, we actually went to private school. My brother did about 1.5 years at a non-private school after my parents moved out of the inner city. But for the most part, that was a challenge because even though I was in the inner city where um, you know a lot of the population, we don't really have the resources that you
Mm-hmm.
would see out in suburbia. But um, there was still a good level of black influence, within the schools that I went to. You had, kids coming from, the View Park, Ladera areas where, of course, the Inglewood area where it's not the same as it is now. So,
Mm-hmm.
that area has seen a lot of transition. But just coming up in that area and being in the private school space, I saw a lot of the sacrifices my parents had to make. Like, coming up, it wasn't easy, especially, um, you know, I don't know, especially just, given everything that we had to endure just to get that, that edge as far as being in a private school. So maybe 1 month, shoot, the lights might have got cut out,
Mm-hmm.
or we're running on cold water, or whatever the
Right,
case may be.
right.
So we got the cable hooked up to the
Mm-hmm.
neighbor, cable. That's how we get cable for the month. But I mean, that's just real, man.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you got to do to make those, you make those specific decisions and sacrifices for your kids. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a blessing in disguise, uh, what it was, seeing what that sacrifice actually had to, seeing
Mm-hmm.
what that sacrifice was for my parents, and seeing how that played out for me and my brother. I think that, like I said, that was a blessing in disguise. Um,
Absolutely. No, I was gonna say, I can definitely relate to you because my parents they grew up in Inglewood as well. I was born in Torrance and lived there for 2 years when I was a baby. But same thing, like I can definitely see the sacrifice that they had to make, and everything that they went through. And I'm sure you can go way into detail about some of the things that they've done for you. But yeah, crazy, crazy. Any entrepreneurs in your family?
um, as far as entrepreneurs in my family, no, there's no
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs in my family at all. The closest that I have is, uh, my family friend, or actually, consider my cousin. We've known each other since about 5 years old. His father, he actually acquired some real estate properties while we were young, so we were, able to see what it was like
Nice.
having to go out and help. And granted, we had a very minute scale of, you know
Mm-hmm.
of what it took to actually run those properties. So just seeing that, it kind of opened my eye to other things as far as entrepreneurship, uh, and being able to earn um, income and then build equity outside of a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm. So, when was that initial switch for you to want to jump into entrepreneurship, wanting to learn more about financial literacy, wanting to educate yourself more about wealth building? When was that switch for you? I know you mentioned seeing people do real estate. I mean, to me, that's a little bit of exposure that little bit of exposure can have a huge impact on a child. Seeing that, wow, there's a different way to make money out there.
Yeah, exactly. That's, you kind of hit it right on the head. That does get you. It opens your mind up to ideas that you were never previously exposed to. So my journey as far as becoming an entrepreneur and getting into finance was a little bit different than most. Um, in college, I actually, my degree was in business management. So
Hmm.
the crazy thing is, in college, I hated finance because to me, it felt too much like accounting, which
Hmm.
accounting I completely hated. So while I was in college, I was actually working for San Bernardino County and Riverside County for in the school system. I worked with the special education classes as a teacher's assistant. So um, that's pretty much the bulk of my college,
Hmm.
you know, career as far as what I did for work. I said I did that for about 3 years or so, and I also worked in after school programs, working with kids as well. So the bulk of my college career, I worked with kids. So I didn't really have any business or financial experience, leading up to me graduating from college. But what I will say is that that experience did help as well, because it helped me understand. Uh, you have to be patient when you're dealing with people, and two, that communication is key,
Hmm.
because we're working in the special education classes. It's the line of communication is not always simple. There's nonverbal communication that you have to pick up on. Uh, you know, just different things that you have to pick up on in order to be able to communicate effectively in that space. But what I will say is after, graduating, or actually my last semester of college, I took it, I had like this epiphany. I said, you know what? I've been working with kids, my whole college career, and that's great. I enjoy it, but at the same time, I'm here getting a degree in business, so I need to align my career goals with my what I came here to get my education in, and that's business.
Mm-hmm.
And that and then that again, that last semester of me actually being in school, I got hired as a I got hired on as a teller at Wells Fargo, and that was really my introduction to the financial space. At that time, again, my journey was a lot different
Mm-hmm.
than most. At that time, I was about 20, 23, 20, 24, graduating, and I had literally just had my second daughter.
Mm.
So I had both of my kids while I was in school. My oldest daughter, I had her in 2009, and then my youngest in 2011. So my experience, as far as college and everything, was a lot different than most,
Right, right.
at least. But that was where I really flipped the switch as far as, okay, what do you want? What do you want to get into? What do you like as far as business? And from working with Wells Fargo, like I said, coming in as a teller, you're starting in essence at the bottom of the totem pole. And one day, a gentleman walks in, and it's probably about 11:30, and the bank opens at 9, and he walks in with this briefcase, and he goes to sits down in the back of the branch, and he starts picking up the phone and making calls, and I have no clue who he is. um and eventually clients, people start walking in, and they'll point to the back, and they'll go get seated, because people that if you've been in the branch, it's like, yeah, okay, you've seen like the barriers for the tellers. It's kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
fishbowl. You're living in a fishbowl almost
Hmm.
when you're a teller, working in that in a branch, for most branch setups. So a lot of the exposure that you really get is actually being on that other side, dealing
Mm.
with the people face to face. So you know, I asked my manager, who's that guy, and she let me know, like, oh, that's our financial advisor. I'm like, oh, what does he do? And she broke it down, like, oh, well, he works with our clients, to help them with investments. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. I think I want to do that. And coming in and pretty much deciding your own schedule doesn't hurt either.
Right,
But
right.
from there, that's what I really, I kind of went down a rabbit hole as far as trying to figure out what I could do to actually enhance my skills, to someday achieve that status, or achieve that that type of career.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's crazy because as I matriculated through my banking and finance career, you know I got into a lot of different things in business banking. That was one of the things that I actually dove into uh, immediately as I became a banker, which didn't take very long. As soon as I graduated, I went full time and became a banker. And the first thing I really dove into was learning business, and I kind of, I won't say regretted it, or didn't want that route. I was solely focused on investments initially because that's all I wanted to do. And my manager at that time, he kind of stopped me. He said, you know what I want you to do is I want you to learn business. And I'm like, you want me to learn business? I just got out of school, 4 years for business. What do you mean you want me to learn business? Like, I know business. He's like, yeah, I know. Him having a degree in business as well, he was like, yeah, I understand, but I want you to learn business from actually doing business, not necessarily from learning from a textbook. And that
The
really,
practical
you know,
business.
yeah, it was uh, for me. I had to check my ego and kind of
Hmm.
understand. Okay, yeah, you might know business from a a technical standpoint where you read the books and you've taken the test, but like you don't know it from an application standpoint. How to actually uh, develop business and learning about
Hmm.
businessmen and businesswomen and how they go about their business. And that was one thing where he kind of expressed to me, in the wealth management space, you got two kinds of people. You have people who either one, they either come from money or developed a certain skill to actually generate wealth, or you have people who own businesses. And a good portion of the people who are in the wealth management space are business owner in some right, whether it's through real estate, whether it's through their own brick and mortar business, whether it's through a consulting type business, whatever it is. Majority of them have businesses because, just let's face it, the wages that are paid um, you know by these corporations, they're not wait in most cases, they're not wages that will allow you to live a comfortable life and establish wealth
Hmm.
at an accelerated rate, especially looking at clients of 30s, 40s. you know um, Most jobs aren't paying them enough to where they can live a comfortable life and stash maybe 200,000, 300,000 away within a 4 to 5 year time frame, or maybe in honestly even a 10-year time frame. A lot of these corporations aren't really paying enough to actually do that. So knowing that most of the people that I'll be talking to will be professionals and business owners, that was one of the routes that one of the pit stops that he made me stop at and say, okay, this is what you're going to learn, and these are the skills you're going to develop in order to achieve that goal that you had. And like I said, that was actually a blessing because it that let me know that whatever goal I had set out for myself, there were benchmarks that I had to actually set for myself, and um, there were sub goals that I had to actually set for myself as well, and a specific skill set that you have to be able to develop in order to reach that overall goal that you may have. So that was pretty enlightening. I say the least.
Right, right. No, that's really good. So now you went down the rabbit hole of being a financial advisor and doing whatever it takes to get there. Um, Talk about maybe some of the early struggles that you had stepping into entrepreneurship, stepping into being a financial advisor.
Yeah, man. So one of the early struggles that I ran into was the network.
Hmm.
Granted, they say your network equals your net worth. So my network growing up in Inglewood, California, and I actually went to as far as the schools I went to my like I said, my college career was crazy. I started off in Long Beach, ended up transferring to UCR, and finished over at Cal State San Bernardino. So my network wasn't the most affluent, but it
Hmm.
was very robust in the sense of there were a lot of people I was exposed to in many
Right.
different settings. So having a network that expanded from Los Angeles to the Inland Empire, that was something that helped me as far as volume. Making sure that I had enough um, people to actually leverage, and enough relationships to leverage in order to develop those relationships that I needed to be successful. Um, One thing that I would say as far as um, the wealth management space, or the financial advisor role, um, there are, licenses that you have to acquire along the way. And, just like any standardized test, whether it's, uh, I'm not saying it's equivalent to the bar, because that's still one of the goals that I have,
Mm-hmm.
to actually, go to law school. Still debating on whether I want to practice and, take the bar and be able to, practice litigation. But that's still a goal of mine. So whether it's any standardized test, I had to acquire many licenses in order to, practice in that space. So that's another challenge as well that I experienced and had to endure while, um, you know, while not only working, but, actually, having young children in the household. So
Right.
I remember studying for these exams, and, I'm studying all day, 9 to 5, while I'm, in the office, and then it being so overwhelming that I have to bring the content home. But now it becomes even more overwhelming because I have to deal with, making sure the girls get food, homework's done,
I
you
couldn't
know,
even imagine.
yeah, it's just,
Crazy.
it was just one thing after another. And, um, you know, that was something where I kind of just made a decision early from the first exam, and, setting that goal for myself that, no matter how hard it gets, just keep
Mm,
pushing through it. You know,
that's good.
I even dealt with adversity from upper management that were, you know, because the company that I was working for, Wells Fargo, was sponsoring the licenses that I was getting. So even dealing with upper management, um, questioning me and, hey, you're behind on this, and, dealing with that, that was something that added even more stress. So it was
Mm,
like, you know what, I just had to drown out all the noise and set a pace for myself that I knew that I could handle, one, and two, that would get me to the finish line. So
got you. Got you. Got you. So let's dive into you today as a financial advisor.
yeah.
I know for me, financial literacy, as we spoke about, it's not a common topic to speak about in my community. I do believe that people are coming a lot more receptive to it, and I think nowadays it's almost seem cool to know about finances and to want to be that person that wants to build wealth. I think it's become a lot more receptive, especially in our community. Growing up, I'm sure you probably grew up with a similar mindset, or maybe somebody around you had. I really truly thought that there was only a couple ways out to make it out, to have wealth. Whether it's the street life, whether it's sports, that was my avenue, sports.
Mhm.
Or if you were an artist, a rap artist, that's all we really knew. So I think now people are becoming a lot more exposed to different avenues and different ways to make it out, and financial literacy is a crucial it has a crucial part to play into achieving financial freedom, or becoming an entrepreneur. So with all that being said, um, I would like to know, where would you start when it comes to educating people on this topic, finances?
That's a good question. I mean, so where would I start? As far as the education goes, one thing that
Mm-hmm.
I would say is everybody's situation is different.
Right.
So the financial space, the wealth management space, everything um, is really goal based. So it always boils down to your goal. Um, so your goal may be to, buy a house in 5 years, or, someone else's goal may be to be able to retire within the next 10 years, or, be able to set aside X amount of money for the kids' college. It all boils down to the goal. And it's more so of a reverse engineering process. We
Mm.
establish a goal in mind, then we actually understand what we have as far as materials, so in resources that we have available. So, okay, do you have a 401k? Do you have healthcare? Do you have, these types of insurances? Do you have, uh, income generator or source of income that you can, set aside extra money for what are we working with here? What's your family dynamics? Do you have kids? Do you have a spouse? Are there two incomes? So there's a lot of different variables that you have to take into consideration, and you actually build that um, I guess that roadmap,
Mm-hmm.
to that specific goal based on what you have and what your goal is and the benchmarks that you're setting in between those two points, and utilizing and maximizing the resources that you have available to you in order to get to that specific goal. So, and again, I know you mentioned that it's not hasn't always been a popular thing. It's not, and to this day, I mean, I still find myself trying to preach from the mountaintop, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing is now people are actually listening now, but
Mm-hmm.
the the thing now is to get them to act, because people are listening, their ears are open, their eyes are open, but they're
They
they're
gotta act.
still, you know.
Got you.
So it's getting we've opened our minds to it. Now we have to act on it.
Mm-hmm.
And people think that it's something where it's this huge goal and you have to invest thousands, and it's like you can literally start by just deciding to put $50 a week, or
Mm-hmm.
$50 a month, or whatever your budget allows. That's, like I said, it boils down to those resources that we're working with, understanding your situation, because everybody's situation is different. One person
Mm-hmm.
may be able to just throw aside $1,000 a month to a portfolio every month. Other people might not be. They might only have $100, $200 disposable income after all the bills are paid, and after all the necessities are taken care of, in order to put aside to invest. So knowing yourself and knowing your situation is really important when it comes to actually setting those goals, because you have to be realistic. If you're
Mm-hmm.
setting a goal that's way too out of proportion to what you currently have, I mean, that's not a problem. But the thing is, okay, if you're setting this goal of putting away $1,000 a month, but the disposable income is only $500-600, cool. That's a goal that you have. But what are we going to do to generate some more income, so that way
Mm-hmm.
you're not net negative every month trying to invest, or you're not late on the bills every month trying to put money away to invest. Um,
Why do Not to cut you off? Why do you
no,
think it's taken us so long to be at a point where now we're listening? Why do you think it's taken us so long? Is it because we're just naive, or we just wasn't exposed to it? What was it? What do you think?
yeah, exposure is a big thing, and
Yeah.
education is another thing. This is not none of these things are things that they teach you in school. So the fact that we don't get exposed to this, from K through 12, and in most cases, even in our college courses, most people aren't exposed to these things. That is one of the biggest problems that we see, especially in our community, where majority of us don't come from that. So we don't get to see mom, dad,
Mm.
uncles meeting with their financial advisor, going over their portfolio, checking in on their real estate property, running that business. We don't get to see that in most cases. So what we see is mom going to work, dad going to work, or mom going to work for mom and dad because dad's not there, whatever the case may be. Um, we see that, and we associate that with what we're supposed to be doing in our careers. Like, okay, they get up, they go to work every day, and they work hard, but we don't see the working smart aspect of it, that a lot of people who come from a more privileged background get to see on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or whatever. You know, they actually get to see, uh, you know, that account that's been set up for them since they were, a young individual, and uh, they get to see what it took, what the sacrifices that mom or dad made, building that business, or what it took for them to save to invest into that first real estate property. So exposure is a big thing. And
Mm.
then, the education is another. So I think those are the two things that really, you know, held us back to the point where we weren't, you know, it wasn't around us, so we didn't, think that we didn't think in that light. But
Mm-hmm.
now that the information is out there, it's at the click of a button now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no excuse now to not know. So that whole that whole idea is out. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
use that as an excuse anymore. It's to the point now where it's embedded in the culture that we've developed. If you look into the rap culture, my favorite rapper, to this day is the late Nipsey Hussle. And they're like, if you're in the hip hop culture, rap culture, there's no way that you can kind of avoid being exposed to it now, because
Mm-hmm.
now it's been, the information is out there, and that's where the push is, as far as for as far as the culture. And that's one thing that you can't do anymore, is you can't
Mm-hmm.
ignore it. So even though you can't ignore it, you can still choose to not act on it. And that's where
Right.
we're at now, is getting people from, okay, you have information, yeah, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is more powerful. So
Mm.
we have to apply it.
No, that's really good. I mean, Nipsey Hussle was one of my favorite artists as well, and he's as, as well as like Jay-Z. You know, a couple guys that always speak about financial literacy in their music, and a lot of times it goes over people's head. But for the people that hear it, like you said, applied information, applied knowledge is obviously it's better than you just letting it go over your head. You know, um, what would you say are common financial mistakes people make? You know, maybe just three of them that you um, see people make mistakes on. Maybe the listeners can avoid these mistakes.
Yeah, the first one is living above your means.
Mm.
The key to being able to save and invest is to live below your means. So if I make $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month, but I'm spending $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month, I'm really not benefiting myself. The person that's making 4,000 but's able to save, $1,000 a month, is better off than the person that's making
Mm.
$5,000 a month and spending that $5,000 a month. So really being able to fine tune the spending habits and live below your means is one of the main things that allows that freedom of income to be utilized as disposable income. Um, Another thing I would say is uh, a lot of people, they don't pay themselves first. You
Mm.
probably hear it all the time: pay yourself first, pay yourself first, pay yourself first, pay yourself first. We'll pay our rent, we'll pay our car note, we'll pay our insurance, we'll pay our cable bill, we'll pay Netflix, we'll pay phone bill, we'll pay, for shoes, we'll pay for whatever it is that we want for the month. And then we're like, okay, at the end of the month, whatever I got left, I'll put aside. Funny thing is that whenever people have that mentality, there's always nothing left at the end of the month. So the
Mm.
people forget to pay themselves first, and that really, once you start doing that, you'll start to see, okay, like, okay, I have all these bills. This is my income. Let me pay myself, pay my bills. And I'm not saying by any means neglect your bills to put some money aside, but if it comes down to strategy and having and knowing yourself and knowing your situation. If I have a bill that's due on the 31st, but you know I got paid on the first and the 15th, I'm probably going to utilize the check on the 15th to pay
Mm-hmm.
that bill on the 31st. Not just to put it off, but because I can go pay that bill on the first and not pay myself. But if I get in a bind and I don't have that that cushion to fall back on
Mm-hmm.
because something happened, and I paid that bill, yeah, that bill is paid. But now, where am I going to get X, Y, and Z from, or where am I going to be able to put that? I'm not able to make that weekly investment that I would
Mm-hmm.
normally be able to make because I didn't pay myself that week. I went
So
ahead
when
and
you I want
But
to just clear it up real quick. When you say pay yourself, is this money that you're going to be saving, or is this money that's going to be going towards investment? Where is it going? Because a lot of people might say, "Oh, I'm going to pay myself. Well, this is my money. I'm gonna go buy me some new shoes or something." So where where is this money supposed to be going?
yeah, when I say pay yourself, that just means in essence putting money somewhere where it's going to be either it's going to be available for you, or it depends. If you have a good cushion already, you've developed those habits to where you have a cushion. That money can go straight into the investment because
Mm,
you don't have to worry about dipping into that money to meet the bills or to meet these monthly expenses already. You know, and that's the thing. It's like I said again. It goes down to knowing yourself and knowing your situation, and really being true to it. Because, like you said, you can say, "All right, I'm gonna pay myself, and this money is for these J's," but those J's, unless you're buying those Jordans and selling those Jordans at a premium, you're still not like
mm-hmm.
those Jordans are doing nothing for you.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I got friends that flip the shoes, and that's cool. But there's only so many shoes you can flip. Like your time is
Mm-hmm.
is limited as far as shoe
Right.
flip.
Right.
You know, investing is automatic. Whether I'm asleep, I can have money being invested while I'm asleep, so I don't have to do anything. That's passive income. Earned income is okay, yeah, I bought those J's, and now I got to find a seller, which is totally fine. I find got to find a buyer because I'm the seller. I bought these shoes, gonna up them. I mean up mark them up X amount of
Mm-hmm.
dollars or X amount of percentage, and make a profit. There's nothing wrong with that, but at some point that has to become automated.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't become automated, it's still a side hustle. It's not a business,
Yeah.
um, and that's where a lot of people kind of fall by the wayside, not being able to make that transition from a side hustle into a business.
Hmm. No, that's really good. You mentioned saving multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just curious, how much do you think people should be saving? And obviously, it's all relative to how much they're making and what their goal is. But is there like a number out there? Like, I mean, I've heard when you go into business, I've heard people say at least have 6 months of your
Mm-hmm.
income saved up.
Yeah, that's the
But I also heard though, um, saving, putting your money in the bank, depending on how much money you have, the bank ain't making you no money. So if it's
right.
just sitting, if you have all this money sitting in there, it's not doing nothing for you. So what's your thoughts on those
Yeah.
two concepts?
So again, you kind of hit it on the head as far as you know understanding your situation, and that's like you said, everybody in our industry, most firms won't even allow you to um, proceed, or they'll give you pushback
Mm-hmm.
where if your client doesn't have the 6 months of their monthly expenses set aside first before you go into developing long-term investment strategies. um, so that is rule of thumb. 6 months of income is really what you want set aside. um, and it doesn't have to be, like, to your point, it doesn't have to be in a savings account. Of course, you will want something like that, where it's emergency funds, liquid, and to get you want to have easy access to it. But again, you want to be real about what the situation is. You're not going to get much from a bank right now, so there's tons of ways to actually mitigate that. You could look into treasuries, look into uh, uh, dividends paying stocks, that don't fluctuate very much because they're mature companies, but they're paying consistent dividends because they're not in that growth phase where they're not pumping all of the money back into the company because how much bigger can Coca-Cola get? They're in every
Mm-hmm.
store. How much bigger can these can AT&T get? You know, they already own say a quarter of the towers, and they're in pretty much almost everybody's home one shape, one way or another. So these companies aren't necessarily focused on growing more, and growing their clientele. They're focused on sustaining and being,
Mm.
being able to adopt and adapt to, the next wave or the next thing that's coming up. So they have to, in order for them to be able to, you know, keep investors happy, they have to pay out dividends. They know that their investors aren't going to get a lot of growth in these companies, so they're paying out consistent dividends, which can be looked at and looked at as say rental income from your rental property. Whether your property is not going to fluctuate much.
For
It,
people
it
that
might,
don't know what dividends are, can you explain it just real quick?
yeah, dividends are a specific amount that a company decides that they will pay out of the profits from the company. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, a company decides they're going to pay $2 per share every year in dividends. They'll pay that $2 out four times within. They'll pay that $2 out over 4 periods, the 4 quarters that are in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, you're getting 50 cents per share for a $2 dividend, a $2 annual dividend. And say the equation to figure out whether you're getting a real good deal is how much you're paying for that stock to receive a specific amount of dividend.
Hmm.
If that makes sense. So, for example, if you
No,
look at
yeah.
TNT, they're about $30 a share on roughly, and their dividend I believe is around $2 and something, about 250. So you really want to find out, okay, what that ratio is and who has the best deal and who's going to guarantee who has the best deal and the best track record of paying those dividends as well. Because granted, the dividend might be 10% opposed to a 7% dividend that's being paid out on an annual basis, but that 7% dividend hasn't missed paying a dividend over the
Hmm.
last 40, 50 quarters, opposed to that 10% dividend who might have not paid dividends the last 2 quarters because things were tight within that company.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of different variables to take into consideration, but if you're not acting on anything, your money's sitting
Hmm.
in that savings earning 0.01%. And it's all about risk to reward. If I'm willing to take say a 3 to 4 or 5% risk on a dip to earn a modest 5, 6, 7%. That's something that I can, me as a wealth manager, financial advisor. I know that's a conservative risk for a conservative return. And you mentioned where should they be putting their money? Saving, like I said, savings accounts aren't going to do it. So you really have to identify, okay, what's my risk? What's my appetite for risk? Am I doing this for the long haul where I really don't care what the risk is too much in the short run, as long as I know over a long period of time I'm going to yield X amount? Or is it to where I have a set goal within 5 years, I need this money to be available, so I'm not willing to take as big a risk, um, you know, as I would if I didn't need this money for 20
Hmm.
years. So that's going to determine where you place that money. But there's tons of places you can
Hmm.
place it.
So that kind of leads into my next question. How people can acquire more assets. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, like you just stated, it depends on when and how you need the money. But how would you advise people on how to acquire more assets?
Yeah, I mean, how to acquire more assets is starting by acquiring something first.
Hmm.
Assets either do a few things. Assets can either grow long term; they can produce income for you, or and that's usually the two main things that they can do for you: that grow long term or produce income for you. But a lot of people, they don't understand the idea of compounding interest. So if
Hmm.
I'm if I buy an asset now, it might produce income, but that income that I take from that asset instead of spending that income or using that income to, go about my daily business and, buy things, I use that income to buy more assets. Now, instead of, getting me having 100 shares and me getting, that $5 or whatever it is in dividends, I'm able to buy 1,000 shares, or I'm able to
Mm-hmm.
buy, 500 shares, or whatever it may be, because you've utilized that income to purchase more assets. So, I guess to answer your question and simply, you buy the asset to produce more income to buy more assets, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't
Oh,
have to
yeah.
come out of pocket
Perfect.
every time to buy the asset.
Right. Right. No, that's really good. No, that's really good information for the people out there that are like, yo, Jonathan, I'm feeling what you're saying. Um, but where can I go educate myself more? Like, what are some resources that you can advise to the people to, because, we all can say, oh, read a book or, maybe go to Google, but, and maybe it could be as simple as that, but where are some like practical resources you would direct people, maybe to yourself or, where do you think, where would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of resources, whether you're, looking for free resources, whether you're looking for resources that may cost. The internet is vast, and you got to watch out for misinformation just as much as you have
Mm-hmm.
to look
Right.
out for proper information. But one of the like free resources that everybody has access to that has internet is, Investopedia. You can type
Hmm.
in almost any term within their search engine, and they'll give you a full, breakdown of what that means. If I go to Investopedia and type in dividend, they'll tell me what a dividend is. They'll even break down how companies, pay dividends. They'll break down dividend yields, in the whole nine. So, it's all at the click of a button if you really want to get access to it. One thing I've learned in the industry, people who tend to succeed have a strong ability to figure it out.
Hmm.
And that's not being mean or being rude, but if I just give you the information, just, you ask me for the information, I give it to you. You might take some things in, but if you had to work and actually find out that information for yourself, and I'm not saying by any means you want to cut off the communication and resources that I have access to, or anyone in my position has access um, to educate yourself. But um, you know I'm limited to a certain amount of time that I have in my
Mm-hmm.
specific day. So I
At
do
some point, you're
whatever
gonna
I
start needing to get paid.
Yeah, and the thing is, whenever I have a client, there's a certain level of accountability that I have to my
Mm-hmm.
client, but then there's a certain level of accountability that the client has to this relationship as well. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's us both doing our due diligence and taking the appropriate steps. But um, I guess to kind of really get back to your question, where can they go? Like I said, Investopedia is a good one. If you want to get more information on like how to start businesses and what businesses should look like, sound like, feel like, there's tons of books out there. Of course, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a good one. Um, one of the books that kind of helped me transition my mindset was 10X Rule,
Hmm.
Grant Cardone. The Richest Man in Babylon. There's
Yeah.
tons of books that I can point to for you to get grasp that idea, or that for you to understand the concept of being able to put money in certain places to work for you, or just even having the mindset to do so, or getting you in that mindset to do so. But I'm pretty sure I actually have a course as well, and there's courses that
Mm-hmm.
you can take online. And I think that the internet has pretty much just broke it wide open for everybody to be able
Yeah.
to find out whatever it is that they want. Like, my course, How to Build a Stock Portfolio. It teaches you how from the ground up how to build a portfolio of stocks. What to look for as far as your um, what to look for as far as investment opportunities, where you can start, what investment strategies. So, and even breaking down the basics of what investing is and what it looks like. There's tons of courses. You can pretty much type in a course on, type in anything that
Anything.
you want to learn how to do, and there's a course for it. Whether it's YouTube, whether it's I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, Udemy or Udemy, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Oh, no, I
UDM,
think I've heard.
Y,
Okay, okay, okay.
Gumroad. That's
Yeah,
the
Gumroad.
platform that my course is available on. Even one of our Juan as well.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah. One,
having his
absolutely.
own platform, Melanins,
Mm-hmm.
for black and brown entrepreneurs or black and brown instructors that are
Mm-hmm.
you know putting their information that they have out there into a course and a platform for them to get exposure and put their resources and knowledge out to the people who need it. So there's tons of places you can look, but again, the due diligence it really comes into play when you're vetting out. Okay, do I want to choose this course over this course, or honestly, take them both. Get
Right,
get the
right.
perspective of the person over here who's doing this, as well as
That's
the
good.
person that's doing this, because one person might have something to say that might spark one idea, and someone else might have something to say that might spark another idea, and you need both of those specific ideas to actually uh, implement your specific strategy or your specific
Mm.
plan of action. So I'd say don't limit yourself in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of free information. There's tons of information that that isn't free. That's going to cost you something. But
Mm.
don't be scared or afraid to invest
Right,
into yourself, into your knowledge, because
right,
that's what's
right.
going to propel you into whatever space that you want to be in. Is being able to get from where you are now to where you want to be by acquiring the information and skills that you need to get there.
No, that's really good. That's really good. And we can really start to wrap this thing up. I did want to ask you a couple more things.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a little off topic. I wanted to ask about your daughter's lemonade business. I think it's super dope that she's doing. I just had to ask, man.
Yeah,
Was it her idea? How did this come about? I just think it's an amazing thing that I'm sure you're teaching your daughter how to be an entrepreneur and how to be independent and
yeah.
how to really go get her own. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, man. She actually started that business when she's 10 now. She started at about 6, 7 years old.
Mm.
About 7 years old. She's really been going in with it. She actually went to her mom and asked, what can she wanted to start a business, and she asked her mom, could she start a lemonade business, and her mom being supportive like she is, she really um, kind of just went full throttle
Mm-hmm.
with it. She
Right.
started selling them out of mason jars, and then from there coming up with the right bottling she wanted to use, the right marketing she wants to use,
Mm.
and it really kind of just took off from there. um, the one thing that I'd say, as far as my relationship with her, as far as to her business, I try not to put myself in the business too much. Again,
Mm-hmm.
mom does most of the operations, and as far as like the funding and everything, that's something that she works with. She works with her a lot on, as far as understanding. Okay, this is your cost. This is your
Mm.
this is what your profit's going to be based on your cost. These are the things that you have to do to actually um, you know gain more customers, or put yourself out there and earn, uh, become visible within the community. But I guess my relationship more so is being in a sense an advisor, and we bounce
Mm-hmm.
ideas off each other all the time. She's actually giving me ideas for my business. I give her ideas
Wow.
for the business. So understanding that it's not my business to run, but my job to teach her how to run a
Mm-hmm.
business. That I think that's one of the main things that um, help her as an individual and as an entrepreneur. That she knows that okay, mommy and daddy aren't going to do it all for me, but
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be there to give me the things that I need in order to succeed. And she's been very receptive with taking ideas and running with them. You know, um, whether it's trying to come up with
Mm-hmm.
different flavors or come up with different ideas for marketing. She's very bright girl, and she's always looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I
That's
think
what's
that's
up.
what any entrepreneur, if you don't have that innate ability to see over the next hill, you'll crash and burn, every time, because
Mm.
if you're not worried, if you're not thinking about what's on the horizon and you're too focused on the now, when it comes up, the times may have passed you, or the
Mm-hmm.
the the business that you got into is no longer the same business. It's a different thing now because you weren't able to foreshadow what was to come.
Mm.
But you have to do that without losing sight of the now.
Right.
You can't be
Right.
too forward thinking without still having the attention to detail to to take care of the daily things that you need to take care of. And that's where she's developed a lot over the years as far as making sure that she's keeping the schedule, um, working it within to her own schedule, because she's a kid,
Mm.
so
Right.
she has
Right.
to go to school, she has to do her homework. She's involved in extracurricular activities, dance, cheer, things like that. So really fine tuning herself and being disciplined enough to have the time management skills um, that are necessary in order to actually run that business is something that she's been growing and learning how to do over the years. And me and mom are very proud of her and very
Yeah.
supportive.
Absolutely.
At the end of the
No.
day,
Yeah.
like it's her business. So
Yeah.
I try to be as hands off as I can be, but still make sure that I'm there to give her insight and advice as far as what she should be
Mm-hmm.
looking out for, how to I guess how to best
Mm-hmm.
um, take advantage of the situation she's
Yep.
in.
Right, right. No, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, man. And for those of you out there, this isn't a lemonade stand on the corner. She got a website fully branded. Wifey and I, we definitely want to pick up some stuff and support. And I'll put her link in the description of this podcast so people can check it out. But
Awesome.
hey, we can wrap this thing up. Absolutely, we can wrap this thing up. What usually I like to have my guests leave the audience one last piece of advice. It can be finance related, it can be entrepreneurship, life related, but one last thing, and we can just end it on that.
Man, the one
And
thing
I know
that
you've been giving a lot of great advice the whole. I need just one more thing.
yeah, that's no problem. The one thing that
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
advise anybody, whether it's a business that you're trying to pursue or a goal that you're trying to pursue, is always bet on yourself. So
Mm,
many times we let people tell us what's attainable, what's not. Be willing to drown out the noise, set your goal and work towards it, tirelessly, and be willing to invest in yourself. Whether it's putting X amount of money aside into your goal on a consistent basis, or devoting a specific amount of time every week, month, whatever, to your specific goal. Be willing to invest that time, that money, that energy into yourself, because you can invest into the company that you're working for, And granted, you should do that if you're in a position where you need that income to support your dream. But please don't neglect to invest that time, that money, and those efforts into yourself and your goal. So that's the best advice I could give. You know,
Boom. I love it. I love
yeah.
it. I love it. Do you want to leave any? Want to let the people know about some places they can follow you? Website, anything you want to promote? I know you have a course out. Let the
Yeah,
people know.
yeah, of course. You guys can follow me on Instagram or Twitter, The Investor Noob. Um, and I'm pretty sure, Chris, you'll probably drop it in the, or
Yep.
pin it to
Everything. Everything.
you'll pin it to the episode. But yeah, The Investor Noob, all the information's in my bio. You know, not only do I have access to my course, How to Build a Stock Portfolio, but if you click the link in the bio, there's tons of resources that you can find from, you know, how to trade options, how to be able to actually read charts,
Mm.
how to build a business. You know, there's tons of resources, and as a financial advisor, that's one thing I take pride in is being able to be a wealth of knowledge and a resource to my clients and people that just want information for their betterment. So
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, John, I really appreciate your time. And it's your boy Chris, and I'll catch you guys next week.